Hello, Melrose Grade 5 families. Thank you for joining us tonight. I think we're going to mute our lines just for 1 or 2 additional minutes. We just want to give folks a chance to sign in if they're running a little bit late. So we'll get going literally in probably 1 minute. We just want to give folks a little grace period getting signed in here. All right, Melrose families, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I am here tonight to introduce your host this evening, Ms. Chatterton, our special ed coordinator at the Melrose Veterans Memorial Middle School. For those who I have not had a chance to meet yet or were not able to be with us on Monday night, my name is Josh Murphy. I'm the principal at Melrose Middle School. This is my first year here in Melrose. I am coming from close to 20 years in Burlington before making the move here to Melrose, where I spent time as a high school computer science teacher, played a role in central office as a director, then went to the middle school as an assistant principal. So been around different roles and different positions within the districts that I've worked in. So really excited to make the move here to Melrose last year. I've really loved getting to know the community, getting to know the students. We were blessed to be able to, in the last week, get to all 5 of the elementary schools here in town and meet a lot of your children and get a chance to introduce ourselves and talk to them a little bit about what middle school is like. The intent of those days was not to give them every little detail, give them a quick overview and just try to reduce any sort of stress or anxiety. So I'm thankful that Ms. Chatterton is here this evening and is going to provide you with sort of, again, another brief overview and an introduction to what special education looks like at Melrose Middle School. This format for this evening is live streamed, and we're recording it for all the families that are not able to be here live with us this evening. And we are going to be collecting questions. So I believe you might see it as a chat window or a chat feature on your end. As the presentation is going, if there's anything you have questions about, you can feel free to throw a question into the chat. Ms. Chatterton is going to compile all of those questions into a frequently asked questions document. And I think both with questions that come in tonight, and there's going to be another venue or format for you to submit questions as well after tonight. And we're going to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to sort of see the answers and see those questions that are being asked, because if you have that question, very likely there's another parent or caregiver out there that has a similar question. So I just wanted to sort of do a quick introduction. I have a family engagement this evening at my daughter's school. So I'm going to be handing the reins over to Ms. Chatterton, but I'm just excited to be able to partner with her throughout this year. She has been such a great advocate for special education students and families. I think in my experience, sometimes there can be kind of like a relationship between families and the schools that is sort of the divide, and almost like you feel like you're two sides working against each other. But what I will say in my short time working with Ms. Chatterton is that she is a true advocate for the families that she works with, and she's really doing everything she can to support students and to support the families and get them the services that kids need without over servicing them, because we want them to build skills and to be as successful as possible. But So really excited for you to get a chance to meet her if you have not met her yet. So I'm going to be signing off, but without further ado, Ms. Chatterton, the evening is yours.
Thanks, Principal Murphy. I appreciate it. And thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to see you face to face. And for that, I, wish differently, but it is so nice for you to join me tonight and, to hear a little bit about special education at the middle school. I am so excited to meet your students. For some of you, you may formally recognize me as Chelsea Davidson. If your child attended extended school year services over the past few years, I was the person scheduling that for you and coordinating with you. So it's been really nice over these past couple of years to see students who I knew, as a name and as a schedule and met, briefly during ESY. And now I get to welcome them full-time as middle school students. So welcome. Thank you all again for joining us today. I know that this is a very, very busy time of year for everyone. So I'm extremely grateful for you joining me tonight. So I figured to try and keep things as predictable as possible, I wanted to sort of break down tonight's presentation so that you know what to expect. I imagine that many of you are likely doing multiple things right now, whether that be cooking a meal, listening from the car, finishing up your own workday, etc. So I wanted to create this agenda so that if there was something specific you were really wanting to listen into on tonight or really hoping to get out of tonight's presentation, you'll know where it falls. So just to kind of quickly go through that for those of you who are simply listening and maybe aren't able to direct all of your attention to the presentation itself, we're going to start with a little bit of an opportunity for you to learn a bit about me. From there, we'll move into the breakdown of the building structure here at the middle school. We'll talk a little bit about scheduling, class breakdown, and the ever famous flex block, which I know is always an area of question for families. We'll talk a little bit about team time, different clubs and activities that we have here at the middle school level. And then we'll dive into what some of these special education services look like here at the middle school. I'll give a kind of brief overview on what you can expect from transition meetings, because I know that your elementary school liaisons have likely set those up entirely. I've been seeing them appear on my calendar, and I'm getting really excited to prepare for those conversations. And then at the end, we will have hopefully some time for some questions and answers. As a few folks have mentioned, I know that Mel put this in the chat and Principal Murphy mentioned it as well. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments section. Not only am I going to do my best to address all of your questions tonight during our time together, but I'm also going to be compiling your questions and putting them in kind of a table format or a, Q&A or frequently asked questions, so that for those families who are not able to attend tonight's presentation, not only can they hear the presentation itself through the live stream, but are also able to kind of see some of the answers in writing to some of the questions you have. So moving right along. So it is so nice to meet you. This particular slide was something that I didn't include in last year's presentation, and I really wish that I had, because I think it's really important that you get to know me as a person and what role I play in your lives, and most importantly, the lives of your students as they transition to middle school. So these are some really important people in my life that I want to just briefly share with you. And then I would like to share with you my why, which is a practice that I have brought to the middle school since beginning my time here as special ed coordinator. And I think we'll kind of set the stage for that third bullet point of my hopes for this presentation and for our partnership moving forward. The first picture, those are my biggest supporters. Those are my parents, my mom and dad. I'm an only child. I come from a family of educators who inspired me to want to enter the field of education at a very young age. I was fortunate enough that my mom actually taught in my elementary school from the time I was in first grade on. So I was used to having her close by, to seeing her interact with students and other staff members, and it really inspired me to want to have a classroom of my own someday, which is partially why I'm here, or I'm at this space. The second picture is my wonderful husband, who is the son of 2 special education teachers. So that was always a fun little plug that I like to include with families, that I come from a family of special education teachers and educators in general from both sides of it. And in the middle, there is that little puppy. Her name is Parker Tortellini. We can talk at a later date as to why she got her name, but that's someone who I like to share often with students. She is kind of all over my office and in my space. So that's a way that I'm able to connect personally with students if they have a pet or if they like animals or something of that sort. However, the little lady in that last picture is the one who I want to share the most about. This is Tara. Tara is my cousin. She was born when I was in 2nd grade. And due to some birth complications, Tara lived her life with some pretty significant challenges and disabilities. From the moment that she was born, my mom still quotes to this day that I insisted that I was going to be a special education teacher. Growing up in both high school and into college, you could find me spending time in Tara's classroom with her and her classmates. Sitting side by side with her specialists, her OT, her speech therapist, her physical therapist, so that I could learn everything possible on how to interact with Tara, to communicate with Tara, and to be the best possible cousin for her that I could be. Tara passed away at the age of 16 during my first year of teaching. So she is really, truly what inspired me to continue into this field of special education and to take on more of an advocacy role in terms of both leadership and in terms of what I want for not just students that I'm working with specifically, but for all students in a school and all students in a district. So without taking too much time on this particular piece, what I really want you to kind of take away from this is that this is my why. Tara is 100% start to finish my why. And my why is something that I have brought into all of our special education teachers here in this building. I can tell you what every single special ed teacher and related service provider, counselor, I can tell you what all of their whys are, because we've spent a lot of time working into what is your why and what brings you here, what makes you stay, why do you show up at this building every single day. So it is something that's really important to me, and something that as we grow our partnership and something as, we develop a working relationship together, I want you to know that that is my why. And that is why I show up every day. And that is why I'm advocating for your student. I go into every meeting channeling my inner Tara, and I approach every single family and every single student of how can I make the most out of their time here and in this building. So that's a little bit about me. And now we'll kind of jump into the middle school things, which is the good stuff. That's why you're all here. So this is just a quick breakdown of the structure that we have here at the middle school. This may be a little bit repetitive from our presentation on Monday, but if you were not able to attend, or if you just kind of need to hear it a second time around, I hope that you find this information to be useful. Here at the middle school, we embody a team environment, which is kind of like a cohort environment. On each floor, we have an A, B, and C team. So we have we have 4 floors technically. Second floor is our entire 6th grade. The third floor is our entire 7th grade. And then the 4th floor is our entire 8th grade. So on that 6th grade team, and same goes for 7th and 8th, we have an A, B, and C team. Each of those teams consist of 4 content area teachers. So that's where you'll find your English, math, history, and science teacher. And then when a student is placed on a team, it's important that you know that their core content classes are all going to take place on that team and with students that are on that team. So it makes a really big building feel a little bit smaller. It's very much so like a class cohort. They work together as a team, and they move together as a team. So hearing that there are many transitions and many different places to go. Once you are in the building and once your students are in the building, they will find that a lot of the time moving from class to class is as simple as moving from one door to the door next door or to the door across the hallway. That is the case for all of their content level classes. Each team is tied to a special education teacher, and that special education teacher provides inclusion support services for students, which we'll kind of clarify a little bit later in the presentation. They also teach an academic support class for the students that are on that team. And then lastly, they serve as the liaison for students on each individual team. So that person is really, really a part of the entirety of all of your students' classes. They oversee everything. Okay. There is a centralized location for each team. So that kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about how a really, really large change and transition with many more students in a big building can make something quite, large and big seem a lot smaller, and hopefully provides a little bit of a breath or some support for students who may be nervous about moving from class to class. A very quick update as far as guidance counselors goes. So when students move up from the elementary school to the middle school, a big change is that they get a guidance counselor. And the role of the guidance counselor can fill many hats. Not only are they available for, the typical surface level of support if the student is having a conflict or needs a break, those types of pieces, they also work very closely with each team and with scheduling. In the past, we have had our guidance counselors broken down per grade level. And right now we're in the midst of kind of an assessment area, assessing counselor assignments, and we are going to be leaning towards doing an alpha split for next school year. So that is something that, there's more to come on that. Principal Murphy, along with the two assistant principals, Miss Michelle Suick and Mr. Dan Melia, will be kind of moving forward with plans and making sure that you are aware as early as possible of who your guidance counselor will be and what role they will play in your students' lives. So I wanted to give you just a brief example of what a sixth grader's schedule looks like. So this is similar to kind of the visual that many of you probably saw during Monday's presentation, where it breaks down where your student is going each day. The reason why I wanted to present it in this way is because I wanted folks to see kind of a closer look at just how close some of these classrooms are to one another. So if we look at the Monday schedule in particular, so we're going to look at from the column standpoint. If we look at B, C, and D blocks, all of those classes, A212, 210, 211, are all within a very small cohort of one another. So obviously, in looking at this schedule, it can be really daunting and it can be really anxiety provoking because it's new. There are, odd ways of the ways that the blocks run. But I wanted to kind of show you this visual so that not only you have an idea of what the block breakdown is, but most importantly, what it means in terms of where the classes fall each day. We do a lot of work with students within the first few days of school of not only visualizing and having their schedules in front of them, but navigating from class to class and what that looks like. We have a few opportunities that will be taking place over the next couple of months, including our Step Up Day, sixth grade orientation, and then our Welcome Back Night, where students will have the opportunity to practice seeing their schedule and moving from class to class to help, obviously practice and with the hope of feeling more comfortable in doing so. This is something that teachers, like I said, do support heavily through the first probably 2 or so weeks of school, and you would be surprised at how quickly students are able to navigate the building after just that short amount of time. So to go into a few of the classes that your students could potentially be placed in, the way that I've broken this down is kind of by the different types of classes that we offer here. These can also be found in our program of studies, but I figured that I would highlight this kind of as a visual for you to see some of the options that we have. So you'll see in that first column, those are your 4 basic core content area classes. The exploratories are formally known as elective classes. Your students will rotate through a variety of those each school year. We try to be really mindful in making sure that the electives that are chosen for your student are appropriate, are that, right amount of challenge, and that it's something that lies in their preference area. However, we can't guarantee, their first choice, second choice, so on and so forth. But we try to work really closely with families on that aspect. Looking at those challenge classes, those in the past have been known as our A block classes. You'll see that there are a variety of different classes that we have students scheduled in during that A block time. And just to reference back quickly to the student schedule, I'm going to just go back one slide very quickly. You'll notice on this particular schedule that A block is taking place here at the first block of every day. This is something that we no longer do. We have A block going through multiple parts of the day, which we've found we've had a decent amount of positive feedback on why that is beneficial. And by not having that fixed A block, they're able to start their day in different classes. So those are some of those challenge classes that students will have the opportunity to take. And then we do have world language options. As 6th graders, your students are going to be going through like an exploratory year of languages. So they will rotate through 3 of these 4 languages, taking a new language at, again, that exploratory level each trimester. We try to take into account what students' preferences are and try to give them their top preferences. But that is an overview of some of our classes. Taking a closer look at a few more classes, these are simply just on here because I couldn't fit them all on one slide without making the font too small. These are some related services. Related services for special education students take place primarily during blocks where we find that it is the least disruptive to their schedule. So we can talk a little bit closer as to where those potential classes and related services can take place. We try to stick to areas that are outside of those 4 content area classes. Intervention classes are classes that take place alongside some of those challenge classes that I mentioned before. Math Lab is a class for students, both gen ed and special ed, who require a little bit more assistance in the area of math, whether that be that they're reteaching or retaught different math skills that the class is currently working on, that they're still working on some of those foundational math skills and need a little bit of extra practice, or just simply need a space to be able to work on either math classwork, math homework, or prepare for an assessment with having the help of the math teacher present. Both this class as well as the author's craft, which is formerly known as our ELA lab, are both meant to help support students in those kind of specific content areas. Again, these are classes for students both on and off IEPs, so they are considered a general education support. They're primarily chosen through both combination of conversations with 5th grade teachers and 6th grade teachers. So we provide some space for the 2 of those to connect and recommend all of those types of things. That's where the qualification, if you will, comes from. And then we also use different forms of data collection. iReady is something that your students are probably very familiar with. So we try to use iReady data as well as classroom performance, assessment, and again, that collaborative effort between teams and with families to determine a student's need for a math lab class or the author's craft for future trimesters. So that first trimester is really done in heavy collaboration with our 5th grade counterparts. And then 2nd and 3rd trimesters are done kind of through that team collaborative effort and with, other parents and guidance counselors and other members of each student's team in mind. That last chart has some of our special education classes, which include academic support and reading. We'll go into a little bit deeper description of what both of those classes look like, but those classes live in the student's schedule. So those are not pull-out services the way that related services happen. They don't, a student is not removed from a class per se to receive these reading supports or academic supports. Those are embodied and embedded into a student's schedule. Flex block. So flex block right now takes place as the last block every Wednesday. This has kind of been the standing practice, both in my 2 years here as a special ed coordinator, as well as in years prior to that too. So I can't say for certain that that is not going to be changing, but it is likely that it's going to remain as that Wednesday end of the day block. Which is nice because it really is that middle point of the week and that opportunity for students to do a variety of different things. It's essentially treated as a win block. So students are scheduled into a flex block. They know what class that they should be attending for that flex block. We've used a rotating basis, so students are going to different classes for flex block each week. But during that time, they have the opportunity to do makeup work, complete retakes or revisions. Our school has a really, really nice retake policy where we allow students that second chance of retaking a test or an assessment. Usually there's some kind of assignment or expectation that needs to be met, such as meeting with the teacher ahead of time or showing that they've completed a study guide or something of that sort. But we like to really work with students and utilize that flex block time to provide those, one-on-one conversations, opportunities for retakes and revision, and those types of pieces. It's also an opportunity for students to get started on homework, to receive one-to-one help from a teacher or a peer. I've walked into so many flex block classes to see groups of students working on different projects together and those types of pieces. So that part is always lovely to see, especially if schedules are challenging outside of school and students are working together on something. Conferences with teachers or checking in on grades, completing practice problems, especially as we're approaching things like end of trimester exams or MCAS, all of those pieces. For a lot of students, flex block is an opportunity to organize their materials. And there are times that this is done through the support of the teacher, like the teacher will lead the class in, kind of everybody organizing their materials, or it can be done on an individual basis too. Students have that flexibility, which is nice. And we work really hard with them through the first beginning months of the school year to identify what it looks like for each individual student. And then lastly, another option of the many options and even more than what is on this list, flex block is an opportunity for students to read or preview materials for their classes. So a lot of students will simply just take a look at what their schedule is for the rest of the week, make sure they're in good shape. Each student here at the middle school gets an agenda. Some students really use them and love them, and some students not so much. But that is an opportunity, for them to kind of take that deep breath. Take some of those things off of their to-do lists, off of their minds, and have that support from different teachers throughout their schedule to be able to help them along the way with that. All right, a few more other pieces just to kind of, quickly note before we get into some of the specifics around special education. Team time is another opportunity similar to flex block that has a sense of flexibility or a sense of that deep breath within your day. Right now, team time takes place first thing on Monday mornings. It is the first block of the day for all students. Students basically go to homeroom, and it's an extended homeroom for that first block of the day. That's the same for all 3 grade levels. So Monday morning, first block, the entire building is in team time. And a lot of things take place during team time. It's a really, really great opportunity for teachers to practice social and emotional learning, especially in relationship skills, community building, community circles, all of those types of pieces. There are times when our lovely guidance department will have lessons and things ready for us to go, which is great because it's something that the entire school can do all at once. And I did see a comment about PBIS. Yes, I am a proud member of our PBIS team. For 2 years now, the 2 years I've been back at the middle school, I have been on that team. I'm so happy to see that that is something that some of your students are using at the elementary level. It's something that we really have bought into and are trying to make it as middle school as possible. These types of lessons take place especially in moments of transition, such as after a school break, after a long weekend, during specific months and times of the year. We'll have PBIS lessons that are done for all students at all grade levels, especially when we're looking to review expectations. We are working on a new set of core values. For those of you who attended Monday's session, you heard Ms. Suick's kind of spiel about how in the past we have embodied the ready to represent our school. We are going to be coming up with some new and improved core values in the coming weeks, which is really exciting. It's been really nice to be a part of that. Particularly the acronym part has been fun. So we're really excited to continue bringing these into our classrooms, to continue bringing in that social emotional learning, and not only having that time sacred for team time, but being able to transfer it into other classes and other parts of the day as well. It's a really great unified opportunity on a whole school front as opposed to just a grade level or just a team. All right, clubs and activities. We're getting into the good stuff. So every year, MVMMS offers a variety of clubs and activities, including intramural sports. All of those types of things are things that we like to explore with students within the first couple, weeks of the school year to see where their interests are, what they want to see moving forward, and what we can offer them in the meantime. There is like a full list of clubs and activities that are available on our website. I chose purposely not to share the website with you this evening just because they are going to be changing year after year. But like I said, we always like to hear what students' feedback is too. I had a student tell me the other day that he would love to see a video production club take place. And the student didn't even realize that that is one of our most popular classes up at the high school for electives. So we were able to talk about that. And from there, we're kind of able to get the ball rolling to see what staff member, if any, have a particular interest in this area. Are they willing to lead a club in doing so? And then finding students to kind of, recruit for this. Student council has been a hot commodity this past year. It's been nice hearing students on the morning announcements every day. That's been something that we've had taking place over the last couple of months. So there are a lot of ways that we like to keep students engaged both during the school day and after the school day. If sports aren't your students' thing, that is totally fine. We like to find lots of other opportunities for them to get involved in our community too. All right, so here's our breakdown of special education services. So before I kind of jump into what this looks like, I want to give you some time to kind of look at all of the names and the numbers and the frequencies and all of those pieces. A lot of this is going to be discussed on an individual basis at your transition meeting. So I've been working really closely with the 5th grade liaisons who have been fantastic in sharing all of the information about your students so that I am able to work with them on making the best possible recommendations on how their current services transfer up to our middle school services. So you'll see in the B grid services, that is where the personnel is the special ed or gen ed staff. As I mentioned before, our special ed teachers on each team provide inclusion services for students in their content area classes. Right now, the way that our model is that we have the inclusion teacher or the special education teacher on each team going into the classroom twice a week to provide modifications and accommodations to students. We also work really closely with our gen ed counterparts to ensure that if there are opportunities for small group testing, kind of splitting the class, not necessarily of gen ed and special ed, but rather those heterogeneous splits so that we can create 2 smaller classroom environments. We take those opportunities whenever we can. but that is what our inclusion model looks like. You will find when you receive your student's schedule that they may be scheduled into an inclusion class without it being a service necessarily, which means that simply your student is not being formally serviced in that particular area, but they're serendipitously scheduled into an inclusion class just by the way that their schedule shakes out. As I mentioned before, the inclusion teacher on each team is also the academic support teacher and also your liaison, which means that this person is going to get to know your student very well. They're going to see them in their classes. They're going to see them in academic support and continue that learning. And they're also going to be your main point of contact and the main advocate for your student. They'll be the case manager in terms of kind of the paperwork piece, the person who you're meeting with primarily, all of those, different areas. But at the very basic level, they are the person that kind of has the bird's eye view, and overall perspective on how your student is doing in their classes. Okay. For our C-grade services, that's where you'll see the primary personnel as either special ed teacher or para. And then we have a few others that are a little bit more specific. So for our small group classes, that is our language-based cohort. That is a small group English class, which means that the special education teacher is teaching that English class. We also have a small group math class. Something different from years past that we were able to roll out this year is that small group math class is actually a co-taught math class where we have a general education math teacher as well as the special education teacher working together in that small group setting for students. And then again, academic support is something that we discuss in the transition meeting to what level your student needs academic support, if at all. Academic support is the primary space where students work on not only completing assignments for in-class work, preparing for tests and quizzes with the special ed teacher, etc. It's also an opportunity for them to work on building their executive function skills. This past year, we rolled out the SMARTS curriculum, which if any of you attend regular CPAC meetings and conversations, I've worked really closely with CPAC over the past couple of years to bring to light the SMARTS curriculum and everything good about it that it can bring to our classrooms in terms of consistency and in terms of an opportunity for students to not only learn skills, but to be able to immediately transfer them to classwork and things that they're doing within the classroom setting right away. CPAC has done a really great job of bringing in folks from the SMARTS curriculum to help kind of transfer those skills from school to home. But that is something that we are planning on continuing in future years and even ramping up more than we have in this first kind of pilot year. We've gotten some really good feedback, both from our special education teachers as well as from students themselves on particular areas of it that they find to be the most beneficial. It was surprising and it was wonderful at the same time to hear how many students reported that the goal setting activities and the areas of really breaking down the way that they're thinking, those metacognitive factors were helpful for them. Identifying what type of learner they are is something that takes a lot of practice, and giving them that opportunity and space to do so has really proven to be beneficial for our students. So you'll also notice underneath this that we do have reading services here at the middle school. This past year, we welcomed a reading specialist who has Wilson certification to join us, and she has done a fantastic job of kind of revamping our reading program. In the past, we have only offered reading services twice a week for 45 minutes. We were able to expand that out to 4 times 45 for students who need that level of service this past year, and it has really helped us grow that reading program significantly. So we are really excited to continue that level of support going into next school year. For those of you who are involved with school committee and those types of pieces as well, we have also advocated strongly for some continued reading support, particularly in the area of Orton-Gillingham, so that we can have multiple reading programs that we are working on with students here in this building and transferring those skills into their content area classes. So very exciting things there. We also offer counseling services here for students that have designated social emotional disabilities and have social emotional goals and objectives that they're working on through their IEP. So this is something that is done currently with both in combination of our lovely school adjustment counselor. We have another school adjustment counselor who is housed at the middle school. However, she is a district-wide position. Her name is Ms. Cardoso. You may know her because she has been in many of your elementary schools these past couple of months. So we were lucky to bring her on board with us, and she has helped us with some of those C-grade counseling services this past year as well. Right now, we also currently have 2 school psychologists who help with a very small number of counseling services, just so that we can ensure that students are counseled in the smallest possible setting, but the appropriate setting. Because we have quite a few students who are working on those social skills and interacting with others. So we don't want students to necessarily be in a one-to-one counseling session if those are not the skills that we're working on. So that is kind of a brief overview of some of our secret services. We also have speech, OT, PT, vision, and hearing services that we have all housed here at the middle school. I apologize for not including this, but we also have a BCBA who is with us through part of the week, who helps provide some of that behavioral support for students too. So those schedules are a little bit different than your typical reading, academic support, and even counseling. They're a little bit more, they fluctuate a little bit depending on the student's needs. But those are kind of the brief overview of our special ed classes. So we are nearing the end, and I hope I'm going to take a big deep breath because I know I need it, and I'm sure that many of you do too. So I'm going to take a big deep breath. Transition meetings. This is my favorite part of the year. I get to meet you face to face. I get to hear a lot about your students. They are quick meetings. If you have any, friends or family, or if you are a parent of a middle school or a high school student, you will know that these transition meetings are quick. And unfortunately, they have to be quick because there are a lot of them. However, I will pat myself on the back that we get through a lot of information in a short amount of time. What to expect from your transition meeting. This is an opportunity, like I said, for me to see you, you to see me, for me to hear about your kid, for me to hear about your worries as a parent, your concerns, things that are on your mind as we prepare for their transition, as well as the way that your student is feeling. So between now and your transition meeting time, if you are comfortable doing so, please, please, please have a conversation with your child about how they're feeling about this transition, because that's something that I would love to take into account and make sure is documented in the notes. The notes that we take at those transition meetings are shared with the liaison who your student will be assigned to. And we try to share those before the end of the school year. We aren't able to formally disclose until, schedules are done and those types of pieces, but we try to give liaisons as much notice and as much context as possible. So when they're welcoming your student on those first couple of days of school, they're able to hit the ground running with vital relationship buildings and having good context of who your kid is. Transition meetings are also an opportunity for you to meet one or more of our special education teachers or related service providers. My lead teacher, who is Miss Caitlin Denizio, is someone who will be attending the vast majority of the transition meetings. She is a former 6th grade special education teacher. This is, I believe, her 5th or 6th year here in the building as a 6th grade teacher. This year, she has taken on a little bit more of a specialized role in our Student Success Center, which if you attended Monday's meeting, you will know a little bit about. That is an option for students who need a little bit more support than what they are currently getting in the general education setting. These are, again, those smaller group classes where students are still able to access the curriculum, but do so in a much smaller way. Caitlin has kind of taken on that new role this past year, but she has remained as my lead teacher to help with not only answering your questions in terms of 6th grade curriculum, layout, all of those pieces, but to also help in assisting to make sure that you receive your notes and the attendance and all of those kind of paperwork pieces in a timely manner at the time of our meeting. This is an opportunity where Caitlin and myself and the rest of the middle school staff will update your student service delivery grid to reflect their middle school services. We try really hard to make sure that your student service delivery grid is as clear as possible. It's tough when there are a bunch of services that are ending and beginning and all of those pieces. So you will be receiving a new IEP out of the meeting so that those services are clear for you. And if you have any questions, we're able to answer them. And then last but not least, we do have that opportunity for you to ask any specific questions that you have that are specific to your student. Address any concerns, share information. It's a really great opportunity, and I am so excited to see and meet each and every one of you for that. Okay, so we've moved into the questions portion of today. I'm proud of myself. I said I was going to give myself 15 minutes, and I am on the dot with that. So I do ask that if you have questions, please try to keep them as general as possible. If you have any specific questions around your student and their programming, I would be happy to talk with you offline about it. Some of it you will probably easily have answered at the transition meeting itself. But if there are any general questions that are on your mind, please take a few moments to type those into the chat. I am going to work right from the top to the bottom so that I can kind of address each of you individually. If I miss you, I apologize. Please make a comment so that I can go back. But I'm going to go right through some of these questions. So it looks like Ranieri, I hope I said your name right. You just said hello. Hello. It is so nice to meet you. Thank you for being here tonight. Suzanne asked, are all assigned books for reading assignments available as audiobooks? Yes. In almost every single case that we have had this year, there is an audiobook that is already available and that the teachers already have prepared. If we come to a situation where there is a book that comes across, especially if it's like a student choice book that your child needs an audiobook for, please just reach out to us and we will absolutely make it happen. We've got some really great ties both through Learning Ally and through the Melrose Public Library to be able to provide those opportunities for students. Absolutely. Jackie, thank you for the kind words about that. I appreciate that. Felicity, I hope I pronounced your name right too. Thank you for your question. Will the teams stay the same throughout the grades 6 to 7 and 8, or will they change each year as classes do K through 5? That's a great question. They do change year after year. So students that are on, one team for 6th grade may be on a different team for 7th grade and maybe on a different team for 8th grade. We do really, really try our very best to make sure that we have students that are scheduled with other students that are appropriate peers, that they enjoy spending time with. We try to kind of take notes of that so that when we are doing those heterogeneous groupings, we are creating the best possible learning environment for every student. So they're shuffled each year, but we try to be really mindful, especially when we are assigning, when I am assigning special ed students to each team, that they are assigned to a liaison who I think will be a great match for them, and that they are have different opportunities to work with different types of teachers. Great question. Jackie, you asked a question about who decides who qualifies for Math Lab. So at the beginning of the year level, we work really closely with our 5th grade counterparts and our 5th grade liaisons to come up with recommendations for classes like Math Lab or the ELA version, which is the author's craft. It is something that teachers take a really close eye on through that first trimester, so that both compiled with assessment data as well as classroom observations, overall class performance, we can make those recommendations ourselves for students for the 2nd and 3rd trimesters. Susan, I see your question in terms of what is provided in terms of executive function. So like I said, that academic support class is really the big foundational piece for executive function skills. It is not the only opportunity. It is really just the most explicit opportunity for students to receive that support in a very direct instruction way. those SMARTS curriculum skills and lessons that we go through are not done on a daily basis. However, they're done on a very regular basis to ensure that students are able to take the lessons that they've done and actually apply them to the work that they are doing. So our teachers have really worked hard this year to be mindful and kind of mapping out where these different lessons take place within the school year and within different parts of the curriculum to align as closely as possible. The biggest thing that we're really trying to keep at the forefront of things is that anything we are teaching the student, not only do we want to provide them with the information and the skills and the materials, we want to be able to give them that opportunity to apply it to real world scenarios. Suzanne is happy about PBIS, as am I. This is fantastic. I can't wait to partner with you on that. Gracie, I hope I pronounced your name right. I apologize if I didn't. Asked about METCO students having transportation if they stay after school. Yes, there is a late bus for students who live in Boston, for our Boston residents. Miss Naira Hall is the METCO director here. She's actually housed up at the high school, so she's very close in proximity. And she should have more information for you on the specifics around late buses. I believe that right now the late bus runs Monday through Friday, and I believe there's a 4 o'clock bus. Carrie, I see you had a question about an opportunity to meet an assigned special ed teacher before school starts. Potentially, yes. And I only say potentially just because this past summer, we had our first welcome back night. And at that welcome back night, we did invite teachers to join. I can't guarantee that your special ed liaison will be present for that night in particular. But if they are, that is where you will have your students' schedule. You will be able to make your way through your students' full schedule. So if they are present that night, that will probably be your first opportunity to meet them. However, they are going to have their caseloads very early on. So they will be reaching out to you within that first week of school to introduce themselves, open that line of communication, and make sure that you have all of the different ways to contact them and kind of what you can expect in terms of communication. Michael, I'm happy to hear that this is sounding really great. That was my goal, to make sure that this entire process is easing any concerns, frustrations, and anxieties that you may have. Carrie, I see you asked how many kids are in the small group classes. The absolute maximum is 12. We try to cap it between 8 and 10. But again, that absolute maximum is 12. Carrie, I do see you asked what support is possible for students that are having trouble getting into the school building. That is a great question. That is unfortunately a problem that we have had, throughout the years. And I do think personally that in light of the pandemic and all of those pieces, that has really ramped up some of our, school refusal and students struggling to get into the building. I will give a lot of credit to the many, many different hats within this building, both from the kind of top down of things, honestly. Our admin team has done a really great job this year in live practice of making positive connections with students so that we are able to support them through those difficult moments. Our guidance team has been phenomenal of working with families, going to houses, doing house calls to help parents and to help students feel more comfortable in getting into the building. We do have a program here called the Access Program. That is primarily our social emotional kind of therapeutic program that in different times and in different instances, we recommend for students, particularly those who have trouble getting into the building. This class can serve as a soft landing in some instances for students so that they are able to get into the building and not necessarily have to go right up to their classes. But again, this is definitely a case-by-case basis. So this is something, we can talk about on a more individualized basis. I will also say we have a fantastic school resource officer, Officer Plummer, who is a Melrose parent, along with serving his first year as our SRO here at the middle school, who has also been a fantastic partner on a very relationship-based therapeutic level to provide support for students who are struggling. That is something that is a high priority for us. So we want to make sure that we're partnering with you in any way possible to make sure that you feel supported in getting your student into the building. Michael, I see you had asked a question about when the meeting will take place with the parents. So that your transition meeting will be taking place over the next couple of weeks. If you have any questions about your specific student's transition meeting, I would recommend reaching out to the special education teacher at your elementary school. They should have information. And if they haven't reached out to you about your individual transition meeting, they should be doing that in the next couple of days. And Julie, kind of similar to that, Julie asked, do we need to do anything to get our transition meeting scheduled, or will that happen on your end? So that happens both in collaboration with me and with the 5th grade special education teachers and the elementary special ed coordinators. So essentially, to kind of give you some insight as to our process, I work with the SECs and with the 5th grade teachers to kind of nail down chunks of different days for their transition meetings to take place. And once those kind of big chunks of time are done, I let them work with families to schedule their meeting dates and times. So I would recommend reaching out to your 5th grade liaison. And for both Michael and Julie, in reference to your questions, if you would like to reach out to me specifically, I am also happy to partner with you to make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of your transition meeting over the next couple of weeks. Jackie, I see you wrote that you were sent an email this week for your transition meeting. And yes, I believe that I may have already received it. I will double check. I've done a really nice job of trying to keep very close track of meetings that are scheduled, what the times are, all of those places. You will find as you get to know me that organization is something that I pride myself on. People sometimes laugh at almost like how ridiculous it can get at times, but I like to make sure that I have my ducks in a row, because this is important and your kids are important. And if that is my way of making sure that happens, that is what I'm going to do. So I believe that we are all set, Jackie. I am really looking forward to our meeting. And Julie, looks like you just thanked Jackie. Perfect. Okay. And then Jackie, it looks like you have a question for the extra time needed for B and C grid. Does this come from the exploratory and challenge classes? So I think the way that I'm understanding your question is that for a student to receive C grid services, are they then being taken away from those exploratory and challenge classes? And that is a great question. I'm going to bump back just a few slides just so that I can clarify that for everyone. So Jackie, and if I am off, please put in another comment so that I can explain a little bit better. When we're looking at specifically the academic support class and the reading class, like I had said, those two classes are embedded into a student's schedule. So if we're looking at a full schedule and we're looking at where they fit in, obviously we have to take some things out. And unfortunately, in some cases, we do have to decide between certain elective classes and certain special education services. I will say, and I will pride myself, that we work really hard with families on making the best possible decisions for their child and making sure that if they don't have a certain opportunity one trimester, that we make every best effort that they have that opportunity the next trimester. That is something that is really important to me from the human perspective of things, and something that we've done a really nice job of kind of making things work and making it all fit, because that is what is most important, that it all fits and that students feel good and parents feel good and teachers feel good. I hope that helps clarify, Jackie. All right. So we have a couple minutes left. I'm going to hang on for the next, minute or so until we've reached that 1 hour in case there are any other questions. I threw a lot of information at you all tonight, and I really appreciate your feedback. I appreciate you being active in the comment section so that, we can have as transparent of a conversation as possible. And I can't stress enough, because I feel like all I've done tonight is smile. You probably are so sick of seeing my teeth. How excited I am for another round of transition meetings. Last year was my first time doing transition meetings with families and with students, because it was my first year in the role. And by the time we had concluded our last transition meeting, I had said, I can't wait for next year. I can't wait to see what that entails and how we can make this experience even better. I have to credit our building administration, who are new this year, that they have done an awesome job partnering with me to make sure that this transition experience is as great as it can be. So, Carrie, I see that you have a question, more information about the Access program. Yeah, we can absolutely talk offline about that. And I would be happy to include more information on it in the kind of bigger doc with the Q&A. It is in our program of studies too. So like the specific, word for word description of it. But we can definitely talk about that offline. If you want to send me an email, I would be happy to set up a time for us to chat about that. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Alyssa. It was nice to see you all as you are starting to log off. Thank you again for joining us, for joining me tonight, for hearing a little bit about me and a little bit about the middle school special ed program. I cannot wait to see you all in a few weeks at transition meetings. Have a good night, everyone.